Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com. And it's Friday. It really is a Friday, but it's not noontime. It's 6:05. Can you see that? PM. And it's a long story, but I'm gonna try to get a fish and chips. But here's the thing, and this is not going to work very well, and I apologize for this, but I still wanted to do a fish and chips, you know. But let me tell you the story. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Yesterday I saw the Grand Canyon. It was a profound experience for me. Today I went to Lowell Observatory and Meteor Crater. And I'll have resources for all of that if you want to see some video and some pictures and my thoughts about it. But this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And some things came up and I managed to do it. And now I'm at a motel in Phoenix, Arizona. And a couple of days ago I spotted this crazy seafood place, and I'm gonna try to find it. So let's go. Alright, so the name of this video, this vlog installment, is called Earth and Sky. And I'm going to narrate over the video. I talked in this video while I was driving, but I'm going to narrate over this because over the past 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks now since I went to Arizona. I've had a lot of time to think about different things and to kind of form these, I'm not sure what to call it, contrapunctions about the trip and about life. And I thought I'd share that with you, a little bit of insight into what I call, what now I've come to call, Earth and Sky. So let me launch right into it. The whole trip started, I'm a frugal guy. I don't live a very exorbitant life. And a year ago, I booked a flight to see family in halfway across the country. And, some things came up, I couldn't go. And so what I did was I canceled the flight, but I couldn't get my money back, but I did get a voucher, a flight voucher, a money voucher for a certain amount of money, a few $100s. And, the voucher's only good for 1 year. So it was, I kept saying, I better do something about that, I better do something about that. And before you know it, a year slipped by. And I started to come up with this, contradiction. I guess you could call it a contradiction, but as the year was getting close, and I said I better book something because I'm going to lose the money and I'm going to lose the flight that I should take. I started to think about the Grand Canyon a lot, and I was like, I've done a lot of world travel. Well, compared to most, I guess, a lot of world travel I've been around, but I've never seen much of the United States. As odd as that sounds, And I kept thinking about the Grand Canyon and the Grand Canyon because that's something I think everyone should see. And now that I've seen it, I'm sure everyone should visit it, especially if you live in America. And there were so many people there from other countries, But to make the point of Earth and Sky, I had this conflict where I was like, well, I could use the ticket to see family in halfway across the country, in another state, and we'll call that Earth, and I love my family and like to enjoy seeing them, and I mean, I've seen them. It's not like I've, that part of my family is alien to me. I've seen them. They come up. I've been down there, and I've gone to see them. But we'll call that Earth. And, it was conflicted because I also wanted to see the Grand Canyon, and it's on my bucket list, and a big deal in my life because I love to travel. I really, really love to travel. So the Grand Canyon was sky. So we have the Earth of visiting family and the sky of visiting the Grand Canyon and seeing Arizona, which is very different. I live in New England. We have the landscape and the culture is quite a bit different in New England, Massachusetts, than it is in Arizona. There's a significant difference. So, that was my first conflict. I guess conflict is a good word for that, but of Earth and Sky. The choice between spending some time with family and spending some time on one of my dreams on my bucket list. So I ended up saying, well, Grand Canyon once in a lifetime thing. I think I've got an open window here. I'll take some time off and I'll go see it. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up flying into Phoenix. It was a whole thing, beautiful thing. And I have more stuff about it on my website if you want to see pictures and see the various things I did. But now, let me continue on. Oh, and the fish and chips place, let me just talk about that a little bit. The Knock Kneed Lobster, I just enjoyed that. I happened to drive by it on my excursions around Arizona, and I said, gee, with a name like that, I have to stop in and get fish and chips there, and I ended up doing it, and asking people, hey, did they have takeout? Do they have actually fish and chips? A place called the Knock Kneed Lobster. For all I knew, they only sold lobster. But it's a restaurant, and they have, you can eat in and you can take out, and my experience was wonderful. So here I am carrying the bag of fish and chips and some shrimp home to my hotel room. My motel room, actually, my motel. But let me continue on. So I had everything laid out very carefully to maximize my time. I only had 5 days. And I wanted to see a lot of things, I wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I wanted to see Lowell Observatory, which is this beautiful observatory in Flagstaff with this gorgeous 24-inch Alvin Clark telescope that's over 100 years old and still functioning, I wanted to see Meteor Crater, which is where a meteor landed in Arizona. I don't know how long ago, like 80,000 years ago, something like that, I forget. I wanted to see... there were 3 castles were within my reach. 3 kind of castles, they're all called castles. There's a Montezuma Castle, and there was a Mystery Castle, and there is a Camelback Mountain Road Castle. Camelback Castle, they call it. It also has another name, I forget. So I did visit all 3 of those castles, and they're all on the website too if you want to take a peek at that, But well, anyway, back to Earth and Sky. I'm just excited to talk about my trip to Arizona. Earth and Sky. So I had a day planned out for the Grand Canyon. Where I'd spend the whole day there, which is not enough, but I had to make that compromise, right? I had other things to see. I only had a certain amount of time, and I spent 1 full day at the Grand Canyon, including, and this was important to me because I had a hunch, including sunset, which turned out to be spectacular. If you go to the Grand Canyon, stay until sunset, because the canyon changes significantly. The red rocks and the red sunset, just magnificent. I got some really wonderful pictures. But anyway, so I spent the day at the Grand Canyon until like 7. And I still wanted to go to Lowell Observatory to look through that big, beautiful telescope and other telescopes they have at night. And they have an open house there from like 7 to 10. So I stood to the Grand Canyon until 7-ish, until well past sunset, and then I took the hour drive on the Arizona highway to Flagstaff so I could get to the Lowell Observatory and look through the telescopes that same night. And it was a beautiful night. Starry, the Milky Way was out. It was just wonderful. I just got lucky, because I saw a beautiful sunset, and I saw the beautiful Grand Canyon, and then they had beautiful skies over Arizona to look through those telescopes. And that brings up my second instance of Earth and Sky. That's the Earth during the day. I looked down along into the panorama, walked along a couple of miles of the Grand Canyon, Earth, right? And then within that same day, the magic of the automobile and the magic of GPS, I guess you could say, and the magic of what human beings do, that same day, that night, under a dark, beautiful sky, I looked through these wonderful 4 different telescopes at celestial objects. And that's sky. And I'd have to say that one day in my life was just, magic. Magic is the best way to say it. Within one 24-hour period, from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, that day was one of the most precious in my life, because I don't know what to say. I have to marvel at the awe of it, that I, took 2 airplanes to get there and stood in the motel, and just everything is, everything is all set up to enable us to do that. And for me to see the Earth at its grandest, and it's literally called the Grand Canyon, but I saw the Earth at its grandest, and then I saw the sky at its grandest under a deep, dark, black Arizona sky, which is quite different from New England sky. So that's my second example of Earth and sky. The first one is, family and personal goals, and you try to find a balance between those, The second example is, Earth, literal Earth and literal sky, and how we as human beings are poised right in the middle between those. That's pretty, it's something to consider, So we're in this balance between the two, that we're grounded to the Earth, yet we're looking up at the sky, and it's not just literal, but it's also metaphorical. You're grounded to the Earth, and that you have to get things done, you have to live your life, you have to be pragmatic about things and plan things out, but yet we're still under this beautiful sky where the various objects and the stars and all the various beautiful things in the sky give you aspirations and hopes and dreams. You reach for the stars. That's a phrase for a reason. And so, I'm so glad I took 2 weeks to do this video, because it gave me time to think, because one more thing happened to me, and this thing happened to me at the telescope. So I was at the Lowell Observatory, and I was looking through the various different telescopes, walking. They have this beautiful campus, and you walk from, observatory dome to observatory dome, building to building, and they had some telescopes set out, some beautiful Dobsonian, 16-inch Dobsonian telescopes, and of course the big telescope was there and available to the public. And so the final instance, let me tell you the final instance of Earth and sky, what happened to me in Arizona. They had every telescope had an astronomer there, and to guide people and talk to people about what you were looking at. And, we were looking at some wonderful things like there's a double cluster, and open star cluster in Cassiopeia, which one telescope was looking at. And, of course, the big telescope, if I remember correctly, was looking at, what was it? I think it might have been M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, which is a standard for telescopes. But out in front of this one building, they had a 16-inch Dobsonian, and an astronomer, a woman, was, talking to people and letting people look through the telescope to see what it was. And it was, M109, something called M109, which is a spiral galaxy in the Big Dipper, Ursa Major, And, she'd talk about it and say different things, and people were coming and going, but, I was lingering. I couldn't get enough. I spent, for me, it wasn't just a show. Hey, I looked through the telescope, I saw a thing, I moved on to the next telescope. For me, it was a deeper kind of thing. So I'd look again. And if there was a line, I'd get in the back, I'd look, and then I'd get in the back of the line and look again, because I wanted more. But come to a point where it was just I and this astronomer at this 16-inch Dobsonian telescope, and looking at M109, and I was like, hey, I get some actual time with the telescope. I'm kind of on my own, so I get to look through it a lot at this, beautiful little spiral galaxy. And, she was talking about it and just, giving a overview of stuff. And then she'd come to the point where, let me think, I think I asked her, so how far away is it? And she said, well, it's estimated to be at somewhere around 70 or 80 million light years away. So that light left that galaxy 70 or 80 million years ago to finally reach us right now at this moment. And I stopped and I paused and I thought about it for a second. Just based on the day I had, I said, so it's the same age as the Grand Canyon, which is true. They think the Grand Canyon was originally formed and started 70 or 80 million years ago. And that struck a chord with her. She gasped just slightly and looked at me in the darkness. We could barely see each other. And for a very long moment, we both paused and just looked at each other. I guess, not at what I said or at what she said, but at just kind of the profundity of what we both had realized. That this example of earth and sky was just remarkable, right, not far away, but 1 hour's drive, was the Grand Canyon, formed 70 or 80 million years ago. And right there at the little eyepiece of a telescope was the light from a spiral galaxy with probably 1 trillion stars. Literally, billions of stars. It's a whole galaxy. At Messier 109, M109, had left that galaxy 70 or 80 million years ago, around the same time the Grand Canyon was first formed. So the two of us locked eyes for a very long pause, just because we both were deep into our own heads and considering that. So, the little example of earth and sky there was just kind of remarkable. But it was also, and I don't want you to misinterpret this, but it was also just a man and a woman standing there at a telescope, contemplating and just thinking about the mystery of it all, It was a wonderful moment for me, just to connect with a person like that on a I don't know how you would call it, a philosophical level or a level of the mystery of it all. I have this phrase that I use. I don't know if I've used it in these vlogs, but I've used it. A mystery abounds. And a mystery does abound. And here we are in this brief little moment in time that passed. And even in our life, if you live 100 years, that brief little moment of time is going to pass. And yet, still you can appreciate the fact that the Earth, the Grand Canyon's been there digging its way, the Colorado River digging its way through that canyon for the past 70 or 80 million years. And the light from distant galaxies continue their journey through space. And we can see it 70 or 80 million years later. It's profound. So that's my talk about earth and sky, and let me review. So it means a bunch of different things. It means, that conflict, I guess you could say, between finding a balance between family and loved ones and your own, personal needs and wants and your own desire to live your life by your goals and what you want to do. Earth and sky also means literal earth and literal sky, in that your feet are touching the earth and your eyes are looking up at the sky, which also metaphorically means, you stay grounded and you be pragmatic and you do practical things to live your life, yet you still dream and reach for the stars. And earth and sky also is that wonderful polarity between a man and a woman, earth and sky. And I guess the best example would be a man would be earth and a woman would be sky, or maybe the other way around. I guess it all depends on how you look at it. And we're all in this, together. It's just remarkable. I had a beautiful experience in Arizona. It was very tiring because I pushed myself pretty hard. I got up really early and I stayed up really late, and I wanted to see a whole bunch of things, and I did. The whole adventure was wonderful for me. And that one day where I started out, where I spent the daylight hours into sunset with the Grand Canyon, and then I spent some evening hours with the universe, was very special to me. I hope that you have in your life some days like that are special to you. They don't have to be the same as mine, but special to you in whatever way you feel special, that gives you that feeling of how a mystery abounds.
Feel free to leave a comment. If you had a special day, send me an email. You might not want to do it in a comment, but send me an email. I'd love to hear about it and how it was special to you, because, you know, we're all different. The fish and chips were pretty good. I'm a little bit biased towards New England fish and chips. I think ours are better up here than the ones I had here, but they were good. They were different. The shrimp were excellent. I enjoyed my fish and chips dinner. Let me see. My telescope book, I've been talking about it for months now. It was quite a project, and I'm very proud of it. Is done. It is now available for sale on Amazon.com. If you have a small telescope, you want to experience some of the night sky and see some things, I have a whole lot of stuff in that telescope. There's actually 101 things for you to see. Well, I'll read you the byline. It's 101 cosmic wonders, including planets, moons, comets, galaxies, nebulae, star clusters, and more. All these wonderful things that you can experience from your own backyard. Pick up the book. It's very reasonably priced on Amazon. And I'd love to hear about it if you get it. Send me an email. I'd love to hear that you got my book. I'm proud of it, and it'd be great to hear somebody else has experience with it. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video below. That's the text down below, Oh, there you go. Look, the Knock Kneed Lobster. Isn't that great? Great name. I love the name of that place. It has a whole history. They have the history printed on that little flyer.